All righty. Trey, you're muted.
Hi, I'm Brian Higgins.
So Brian is our rules interpreter and a board member. These are guys that faces you will see, so that you'll want to get to know. Feel free to reach out to any of these guys, email them, contact them. Trey, you ready there?
Yep. Hey, Trey Towery, also a board member.
All right, here comes Landon.
Hey, I'm Herbert Phillips, also a board member. Contact me anytime you need to contact me.
Help me.
Just like this one, I got to help this one too.
Help me.
All righty.
Let me mute that so I can work with him.
All righty. All right. So let's go around with the folks that are not board members. Jim, why don't you start us off? Why don't you tell us a little about yourself? What's your experience with lacrosse?
My name is Jim Mitchell. I'm down here in Peachtree City, Georgia. I had a son who's now a sophomore at Mississippi State who played for the high school. He's been playing since he was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And so I became his volunteer dad. I cut the grass and set the field up for the game, got the flag up and down, was a timer on the sideline. And it's just a great sport, and I just really loved it. There were a couple times during Nathan's junior and senior year where the game was almost canceled for lack of referees. And I'm now an empty nester. Our youngest has now off to school. And I thought, I don't want that to happen to somebody else. So I thought I had the time to give this a shot. And it's a wonderful sport. I enjoy it.
Awesome. Tyler, why don't you give us a heads up on who you are and what your experience with lacrosse is?
You guys hear me pretty good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So my name's Tyler. I'm 29. I live in the Beaufort area. So I went to North Gwinnett. I played lacrosse at North Gwinnett. I also played at Young Harris. A bunch of travel leagues and everything. My oldest son just started playing. He's 9. And he's in his second season going on now, so he's enjoying it. And I love being around the game. And I was thinking, what way could I be around the game more aside from helping him coach from time to time. So I came across this and thought it would be a good idea to not only get some exercise but to be around the game I love too. So looking forward
That's awesome.
to working with you guys and meeting all of you. And yeah.
All right. Tim, why don't we go with you?
Hello, I'm Tim Sagos, 47 years old. This is my first time with lacrosse. I just got through with football. This is my second year in football. Um, I live in the Fayetteville area. One of the football referees told me there was a need for lacrosse. I've been watching it on TV, but I had an interest in it. Never played it before, but I'm willing to learn it.
Awesome. All right, who we got? Bruce Johnson.
Good evening, Bruce Johnson. Live in Marietta. Both my sons play lacrosse. My oldest plays high school lacrosse. My younger plays middle school lacrosse. I played a couple of seasons of old guy lacrosse just to see what it was like before I started complaining about their effort level. And it's a lot harder than it looks. Enjoy the game. Enjoy watching the game, go to a lot of games, and just thought it would be interesting to understand the game at a different level.
All right. LT.
How you doing? Logan Thornton, live out in Monroe. Holy cow, I have a brain fart like that. Live out in Monroe. I was invited to this by a client, I would say, of my wife's and their business. He knows I've been officiating a few sports. I've been doing did football, did basketball. Well, I'm in the middle of basketball right now, except for Wednesdays. I blocked out the next 3 Wednesdays. And this will be my first year with lacrosse, but I see it just like any other sports I learn. Once I get the mechanics and rock the books and keep my head in the books and learn everything, that I will be able to pick it up just as easy as even all the years of knowing football and basketball. Once it became the mechanics, I was like, wait, this just got technical. But
Yeah,
so far, so good, according to everybody I work with. So I expect the same from lacrosse.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Adam.
Yeah, Adam Stimmel, 45, down in McDonough in the South. Longtime football official, looking to, learn a new sport, continue getting in better shape. Talked a lot with Clyde and Alan about Alan Skinner about the game and how awesome it is. So looking forward to that. My son did play some club level ball for 4 or 5 years, so I know about that much about
Okay.
lacrosse. So I'm interested to learn the rules. Look forward to it.
Well, I mean, we got a lot of guys that are great officials who never picked up a stick or played a game in their entire lives. So part of what we kind of pride ourselves on is being able to get you up to speed pretty quickly. And if you've officiated other sports, it's always really, really helpful. Carson.
I'm Carson Bierek. I'm out in Kennesaw, Georgia. I played lacrosse at Kennesaw Mountain High School, and I recently just graduated college and moved back to the area. So just looking for a way to get back to the game and be around what I loved.
Cool. Mark.
Hey, I'm Mark St. Germain. I've played for about 7, 8 years, ref for probably right around the same. I'm just moving up from doing youth to just now starting to do high school. So just taking the next step in the lacrossing program. But I've worked with Higgins enough times to know that as long as his knees don't give out, it'll be a good season.
Hey, that's true for all of us, my friend. That is true for all of us. All right, Sean.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my name's Sean. I recently moved to Georgia about a year ago. I'm originally from Eastern Pennsylvania, around the Philly area. I grew up playing lacrosse. I've been playing since I was like 10. Love the sport. I played at the D3 level for 4 years, and moving down here, I wanted to get back into the sport, and there's not a lot of opportunities in the Athens area. So to get started, I figured I'd look into reffing. So I'm really happy to be here.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Let's see, who did not? Clyde, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, Clyde Allen, board member. Got my hand in recruiting. Huddle, for those that are familiar. It's the video platform that we get game film from schools. What else? I don't know.
Also does football.
Yeah, I'm also a football official. So,
all right. Hey, big thing, guys. Here are Landon. Did you get a chance to introduce yourself?
I didn't. Landon Hunsucker. Really, I just wanted to jump in real quick and make sure that there was any questions about Dragonfly. Clyde and I can help you out with Dragonfly and making sure that you got to get in order to ref GHSA sports in Georgia. You got to be registered in Dragonfly. I was just overlooking and making sure everybody's done that. If there's any questions, and just to kind of follow up, I am on the board as well, and be glad to help anybody that it's a great game. I was one of those football guys that didn't really know much about lacrosse, and I grew up in Virginia. I'd seen it, but never really played it. But it is a great game. So I'm sure everybody will confirm that. But anyway, just Dragonfly is the issue that I was wanting to make sure everybody had any questions on.
Yeah. Everybody good? All righty. At this point, we're going to jump into the training part. Oh, Perry, I didn't get you're sort of a different case. So why don't you tell us about yourself and sort of what you've been doing?
Yeah. So my kid was a player at Buford, 4-year starter at Buford. He now moved on to college. So he's a sophomore, plays in Virginia. And I like to understand the rules a little bit better. So I got into reffing. I used to yell at Brian a lot when I was coaching. So a lot of those were unfounded. So the least I can do is to learn the actual rules. So it's a little different from this side. I reffed 10 or so games in the fall, and I still don't know very much.
Yeah. So again, all of these sessions are going to be recorded. There's a whole bunch of video stuff that's online. I will point you over the next couple of weeks to where those things are. I'll be sharing those things with you. By the end of the day tomorrow, I will send you guys an email with a link to this recording, so that you can go back and look at stuff and sort of review. Most important thing and the biggest thing during this sort of beginning of your journey, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. If you know Brian or you know Clyde, reach out to them. If you don't know anybody, you can literally reach out to every single one of us. We would be happy to answer questions. We are the sort of true believers of this whole thing, right? We are definitely not doing this for the money. So we really just want to make sure that you are going to be successful in whatever it is that you do. And we understand how difficult a process and kind of, it's not like GHSA makes this easy when you sign up for Dragonfly, or, it's not like the rule book makes a whole heck of a lot of sense when you first take a look at it. So we are here to walk you through this process. Board members, if you guys want to jump off, you are more than welcome to jump off. We're going to dive into sort of introduction to the game. For some of you who know about lacrosse, you might know some of this stuff. For those of you who know nothing about lacrosse, hopefully this sort of brings you into a little more of a picture of sort of what's going on. So let me get us.
Greg's a great teacher. Definitely listen to him. He's done an amazing job. So and definitely please reach out to us if we can help in any way for anything. So anyway, I'm gonna sneak off. Thanks, Greg.
All right, thanks, Landon. All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. And I'm gonna share this guy right here. All righty. I'm going to. All righty. So what we're going to talk about today is really the origins of this game. This is a Native American game. 48 Native American tribes play. Probably the big one is what used to be called the Iroquois. They now go by the Haudenosaunee. The original term for the game is they bump hips. The Choctaw called this the little brother of war, and many of the groups called this the medicine game, right? It was an important religious ritual where groups would be brought together and they would play for a specific purpose. First documented by Jesuit missionaries in the sort of mid 1600s, and they thought the sticks looked like a bishop's crozier. The big staff, the sort of shepherd's staff that the bishops carry, and so that's why it's called lacrosse. This is an original version of the game. Didn't wear helmets, you had gloves. Big wooden sticks, man. I remember when the van used to pull up with the sticks. Pretty wild game. It was initially sort of played by Europeans in the 1840s in Canada. Native American players were eventually banned from playing because they were too good. The guy you'll hear that is the father of lacrosse is this guy by the name of Dr. William George Beers. He was a dentist, and he forms the Canadian Lacrosse Association in 1867. He's the guy who sort of standardized the rules. You switch to a rubber ball, and he's the one that lobbied to make it the national sport of Canada. This is the guy you probably want to pay attention to. That's Dr. James Naismith. You know him as the guy that invented basketball, but he was a lacrosse player and a hockey player. He was Canadian. And I used to teach that if you wanted to understand lacrosse offense, you should look at basketball. It's about matchups. It's about isolation. It's about clearing out sides. Well, really, basketball is a reflection of what he understood to be lacrosse, right? The game has grown tremendously. It's really big at these sort of high-end schools on the East Coast. There were some reorganizations. It was eventually sanctioned by the NCAA in the 1970s, and then USA Lacrosse as an organization came around in 1998 and became the sort of national sponsor of the sport. The game is played by two teams of 10. You have attackmen, defensemen, and midfielders. You've got 4 12-minute quarters in high school, and you've got 4 15-minute quarters in college. The game begins with a face-off. You can check with your body and your cross. The ball is in play by being carried, thrown, batted with the cross, or rolled or kicked in any direction. There's offsides. Goal counts as 1, and the most goals win, right? It's pretty simple. Here's a sort of hype video from 2 of the better teams in the state. If you get to do these games, they're really fun. This is Lovett and the Blessed Trinity Titans. You know, these guys have won some state championships. They send a lot of players to college. We are in a developing area, but we've got some really good lacrosse down here, right? Hey, there's Landon. And you get to see this sport played at a really high level at the high school level. You get to see some really good athletes, and you get to see some really fun stuff. So this is kind of what a lacrosse game looks like. These are some big, fast, athletic kids, and it's really fun to watch. Now, we'll talk more about sort of the play of the game. This first lessons that we're kind of doing here are just kind of getting some terminology and some equipment out of the way. NFHS rulebook, we are an NFHS state, divided into 7 rules. For those of you who are signing up for Dragonfly, it's really important that you do that quickly because you will get access to the electronic rulebook through the NFHS. So the quicker you sign up for Dragonfly, the quicker you are going to get access to the rulebook. I'm going to try to make some hard copies available for you. But you know, I'm not going to see you until the 20th. So I'd rather have you sign up for Dragonfly, knock that out of the park, and then get into this. It's pretty simple as to how it's organized. Youth rules are modifications from the high school rule book. So it's really important that you understand this rule book before you move on to the youth rule book. And again, I will make that available to you as we move forward. There are penalties in lacrosse. They're divided into 2 basic categories, personal fouls and technical fouls. We will do a unit on each one of these. Personal fouls are your sort of safety fouls. They are 1, 2, or 3-minute fouls. You are removed from the game and your team plays a man down. Technical fouls are either you get awarded the ball or they are 30 seconds, depending upon when the foul occurs. We'll get into that later on. Signals, I'm just going to throw this out there. Signals are really important. Right now, you guys kind of don't know what you're doing. And that's fine. We don't really expect you to know what you're doing right now. But one of the ways that you can really look like you know what you're doing is really practicing your signals, getting in front of a mirror, getting in front of, your cell phone and videotaping yourself. Practice these signals so that you look like the guys on TV. If you do that, it will go a long way towards really giving confidence to your teammates, your crewmates, and to the fans and the players and the coaches that are out there. So there's a couple of places that I'd really like you to bookmark when you do get your rule book and it becomes available to you. The points of emphasis. Every year, the NFHS sets out 3 or 4 points of emphasis that they want officials to really focus on. We do not set those points of emphasis. That it's not a committee of officials that sets this. These are the coaches and athletic directors from high schools around the country. And this is what they are telling us that they really want us to pay attention to. Pro tip, all those points of emphasis questions end up on the test. So if you know the points of emphasis, you're going to know how to answer the questions that are on the test. The rules revisions are always highlighted. They're sort of, if you're used to football or basketball or another sport, you kind of know that. Rule 489, which is what we're looking at right here. Goal scored, goal not counted. I've been doing this for 24 years, and I'm pretty sure that people are fairly invested in winning games. And so knowing what counts as a goal and what does not count as a goal, and when you take a goal off the board, is a rule that you've got to know like the back of your hand, right? The other rule you need to know is Rule 713, the what do you do when you screw up rule. Again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have made terrible, horrible, very no good mistakes. What you want to make sure that happens is you know how to fix it. You know what your options are, right? So these are really important rules to make sure that you're checking out. A lot of you guys do football, right? Goal crease privileges and prohibitions. The crease is the area that the goalie's in. Offensive players are not allowed in it. The goalie gets certain protections. Goal crease privileges and prohibitions is the kicking game in football. Okay. It took me, I did football for 13 years at the high school level. It took me 4 years before I knew what the hell was going on with the kicking game. What's a muff? Can you advance a fumble? What happens if somebody touches the ball first? How far does it go? What can you do? What can't you do? Goal crease privileges and prohibitions happen at the speed of sound with bodies flying around. And you have to make a decision after having run down the field at 100 miles an hour and everybody's staring at you like, was it a goal? Was it interference? Was it a crease violation? What are we doing? This is stuff that it's going to take you a while. So it's one of those things you really do want to spend time on. Cross specifications, what makes a legal lacrosse stick, what is an illegal lacrosse stick, and what are the penalties for that? We'll get to that. I've got a great video that shows you how to do stick checks and all that kind of stuff. And then overtime rules. And like I said, signals. Pay attention to the signals. Spend time learning the signals. A couple of words I want to throw out for you: must, will, and shall. If you see a team must have, or a team will have, or a coach shall do this, those are not options. That has to happen for you to move on to the next step. The other ones are may, should, and can. That means you're allowed to do it, but you are not necessarily required to do it. Okay. In the training plan that I sent you guys, click on that link that says 2024 training plan. You've got a link to the USA Lacrosse 2-man mechanics manual. For the most part, 99% of you guys are going to be doing 2-man games. These are JV games. These are youth games. Couple of varsity games. But this is where you're supposed to stand. It's not a rule, but it's where you're supposed to stand and what you're supposed to be looking at. I am on this committee. with USA Lacrosse. So I can easily answer questions as to sort of what is going on and how this stuff works. And I've incorporated this into the training stuff that you're going to see today. But these are great resources that you can check out. We also have the GLOA game guide. I'm sort of in the process of updating this with the new rules changes. But this is a really detailed document that is broken. I mean, I've got a section on where do you stand during the national anthem, right? This is all the stuff that's kind of not in the rule book and not in the mechanics manual, but I want to make sure that you have access to. And so you've got a link to a PDF of this. Some terminology points. Basically, what we're kind of looking at here is the who, what, and where. So midfielder, these are the guys that play offense and defense. They run down the field. They go both ways. Defensemen, also known as D or long poles. These are the guys with the big 6-foot sticks. And they're the guys that 3 of them hang around their goal and along with their goalkeeper defend their goal. Attackmen are often your best and most skilled offensive players. They hang out by the other team's goal. Their goal is their job is to score goals. And then you've got the head coach and the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper, very specific, need to have one, needs to be legally equipped. And then you've got a head coach. Now, we'll talk about head coach stuff. It's not that I do not talk to assistant coaches. I'm not that guy, but the head coach has very specific responsibilities. He's listed in the book as having those. You need to know those. Okay. You're either on offense or defense. A really good key when you're reading this, when you're reading the rule book, team A always has the ball. They're on offense, and team B is always the defensive team. So A1 is slashed by B5, right? Just understand who's got the ball, what team has the ball, what player has the ball, that kind of stuff. Then you've got clearing or riding. Clearing is you are trying to get the ball from your defensive end into your offensive end. And there's a time limit once you get possession of the ball that's kind of important. And if you are trying to prevent that team from doing that, you're called the riding team, okay? The where we'll get into a little bit later on, but it's sort of a list of places on the field. We'll get into that in just a sec. All right, here's the big moment. Most of you have my email address. You can use this one or you can use the gregoryheight@gmail.com, but please jot down my cell phone number. You know, I've been training guys since 2008. I've got a zillion dudes' phone numbers in my you know, my contact list. If you text me or call me and you're driving home from a game, I am probably driving home from a game and texting and calling somebody else. Okay, so I will get back to you as soon as I am able to get back to you. You will get a response from me. Okay, I just want to let you know that. And again, all this stuff's going to be up online, and we'll go from there. All right, let's go to some key definitions. All right. Hey, if you have done sports before, you know that there are, you know, we use terminology and we describe things as referees that the average fan or you know, an inexperienced coach or player will use very loosely. These words mean very specific things. And in order to officiate this game, you've got to know what these terms are. The big ones are possession, shot, goal, and out of bounds, right? You cannot officiate this game unless you understand these terms, okay? And we're going to go through each of those. The other two are airborne player. It's just kind of a weird definition, and it comes into play fairly frequently, but once you kind of figure it out, you figure it out. And then alternate possession, right? When do we allow for alternate possession? But the yellow ones are the ones I want you to pay attention to. So, possession. You're going to hear me say this 1,000 times over the next couple of weeks. Possession is carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting. Carrying means you just have the ball in your stick and you're running down the field. Cradling means you are actively working your stick back and forth. You're using that centrifugal force to keep the ball in the pocket. Passing, you are trying to throw the ball to a teammate, or shooting, you are attempting a shot on goal in order to score. If you are not doing one of these four things, the ball is loose. Okay? The single-handed most important definition in the book. So let's talk about a shot. It is a ball propelled towards the goal by an offensive player with the intent of scoring a goal. It doesn't need to go towards the goal. I have seen guys try to take a shot and they get checked and the ball shoots out at a 90-degree angle and goes out the sidelines. As an official, it is my job to determine intent. If I feel like this player is attempting to score, I treat it as a shot. If I feel that he is passing it to a teammate, I treat it as a pass. It is a remarkably, it's our judgment. There's not a lot of specifics, okay? Now, that being said, in order to take a valid shot, you need to be above the plane of the goal. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. You can throw it from your cross. You can kick it in. I've told this story for years. My first goal, I didn't know anything about lacrosse. I grew up in New York. I switched from public school to private school. I had never seen a lacrosse game in my entire life when I tried out for lacrosse. And my first goal at 8th grade JV, I kicked it in the net. It went in. The referee looked at me. I looked at the referee. The goalie looked at me. The goalie looked at the referee. The referee looked at his partner, and his buddy put his hands up. Right? You can kick the ball in. It can bounce off your head. You can do any of those things, right? So this is what I mean above GLE. GLE is short for goal line extended. Imagine there is an imaginary line coming from the goal line that goes out to either sideline. As long as the ball is released on the left side of this screen, it is a valid shot. Otherwise, you treat it as a pass. And we'll get into the sort of importance of that in a bit. So you take a shot. When does it end? A shot that is ricocheted off somebody remains a shot until the ball comes to rest. It is no longer moving. A team gains possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting. The ball goes out of bounds, or a player causes it to go out of bounds. The key with player causing it to go out of bounds is there added impetus? So if the ball is going out of bounds on its own and you're trying to pick it up and you are unable to secure possession and you touch that ball and it goes out of bounds, the question you have to ask yourself as an official is, would it have gone out of bounds anyway? The fact that you didn't get a hold of it doesn't mean that you forced it to go out of bounds. If it wasn't going to go out of bounds and you did something to make it go out of bounds, then you caused that. The shot has ended, right? Again, the big question here in this last one is, was there added impetus? A goal. Again, most goals win. So this is a fairly important definition that you need to know. A loose ball, that is a ball that is not in player possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting, that completely passes through the front of the plane formed at the rear edge of the goal line, goalpost, and crossbar. So this isn't football where if the ball just touches that plane, it's a touchdown. The entire ball needs to be past that plane. And it has to be a loose ball. If I can put the ball in my stick and shove it into the goal, and it's not going to count as a goal because I am in possession of that ball. Okay? How it got in there is irrelevant, whether you meant it to get in there or not, right? And it may be released before the horn to end a period. We'll get into that in a sec. You'll hear, for those of you guys who've played, it hit 3 pipes. That has to be a goal. How can that not be a goal? Well, The goal line is 2 inches. The pipe is 2 inches. If you hit the pipe and the line, you have not completely passed the rear edge of the plane formed by, wait for it, the line and the pipes. So hitting the pipes in no way makes it a goal, right? And I've seen balls hit 6 pipes and bounce out. Like, seen some weird stuff in my time, right? You got to go by what the rule says, not by what your coach from 1937 told you. Okay, right? So that's the key thing. Ball's got to be loose. Ball's got to be behind that line. So here we are. We are carrying, shooting, we're passing. Right? This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about possession and attempting to score. Shot can be released before the horn. So again, this is kind of the basketball rule. As long as it's out of your stick before the horn goes off, you're going to allow that play to continue. You're going to swallow your whistle, as we like to say. The shot can hit the ground. It can deflect off a goalkeeper or a defensive player, but it can't hit another defensive player after that, right? So once it's hit one defensive player, it's either got to go in or miss the goal, okay? And it can never hit an offensive player. That's a key distinction that we want to make.
Sorry, that's any shot or just before?
No, that's only a shot that is released at the end of the period, right? Okay. So you shoot, the horn goes off to end the period. Basically, you don't get.
So my buddy on the offense hears the horn and then just directs it in with whatever his arm.
Yeah. So once the horn is blown, no offensive player can touch it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm with you.
You just got to let all the offensive guys have to just let that play come to conclusion. Okay.
And one defensive player only.
Yeah, it can only hit one defensive player. Once it hits the second defensive player, it's no good. Again, this is a confusing rule, and it happens at a really critical time, right?
Really.
And again, we're going to come back to this. This is not the first time that you're going to see this. We're going to do an entire thing on goals and crease play. Again, I'm more interested in sort of introducing you to the definitions here. Out of bounds, loose ball, again, not in player possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting. Touching on or beyond a boundary line or breaking a plane is awarded to the team that did not touch it last. This is the basketball rule. If you were the last person to touch it and it goes out of bounds, the other team gets it. Right? Pretty simple. A player in possession is out of bounds if their player or their cross in possession touches the boundary line or beyond. Okay? Now, you can run down the sideline with your stick hanging over the sideline. You have to physically touch something that is out of bounds in order to be out of bounds. And all that's going to happen, so if you step on the line and you're in possession of the ball, all we're going to do is award the ball to the other team, right? It's just like if you were in basketball and you stepped on the line, boom, we give the ball to the other team. A player not in possession who is out of bounds may not participate in the play until they fully come back in bounds. Okay. And that we'll get to the airborne player in a second. Now, why is this important? Because we're going to get into what happens when we do shots. A shot is a loose ball that is going to go out of bounds. But a shot, we are not going to award to the last team that touched it. We are going to award it to the person that is in bounds, legally equipped, and closest to where it went out of bounds when it went out of bounds. And one of the key things we're going to talk about is it is not the cross of the player, it is the body of the player. So in this case, it is clearly the white goalie is closest to where this ball goes out of bounds when it goes out of bounds. All right, so let's look at this little video example. So you're going to see the yellow player. He's out of bounds and he touches the ball. Right? The ball's up in the air. Loose ball breaks the plane. It's a live ball, but he is touching the out of bounds and he is touching the ball. Here's a player who's going to come in. We're going to restart play. He is legally pushed out of bounds. Right? So you have a player in possession of the ball, stepping on the line. You are going to award the ball to the other team. Right? Again, shot out of bounds. On a shot, award the ball to the inbounds player closest to where it went out of bounds, when it went out of bounds. Right?
Not the cross, but the body only.
Not the cross, but the body only. Now, they're all going to dive, but by diving, they sort of push forward, right? Airborne player. This is sort of my favorite phrase, and I have to remind myself of this all the time. Whether an airborne player is inbounds or out of bounds is determined by what the player was last in contact with. The phrase I want you to remember is, you are where you were. So in this case, this white player is diving from inbounds to out of bounds. And so he's inbounds until he touches something that's out of bounds. If you are out of bounds and you are diving and jumping inbounds, you are not considered inbounds until you fully and completely are only touching things that are inbounds. Right? And then we've got alternate possession, rule 430. This is the possession arrow in basketball. It's the, I don't know what we're going to do with the ball. They've actually this year limited the number of opportunities that we have to do this, which I think is great. But this is the, I don't know who it went off of, or sometimes the ball that's stuck in the mud in the field of play and you don't know who to award it to. This is your option of, okay, this is how we figure this out. And the way this is determined is at the beginning of the game, you do the coin toss with the captains, and the teams have an opportunity to decide whether they want the first alternate possession, or whether they want to choose a goal to defend. And I would say 9 times out of 10, everybody chooses alternate possession. If you award a team alternate possession, you simply erase it on your scorecard. You give the signals and you say, hey, we're going to go this way. Alternate possession now belongs to the red team. Okay. It sort of toggles back and forth. All right. All right. It is 8:15. Let's take a 5-minute break. So you guys can sort of get up and stretch around, get some water, get an adult beverage, whatever you so desire. And we'll come back and kind of wrap this thing up. All right. So I'll see you back here at, let's say 8:21.
Okay. I'm in trouble.
All righty. All right, share my screen. Let's talk about. All right, this is the goal field, ball, and equipment. Okay, so this is your standard Federation field. I've sort of put the football markings on there to give you guys a sense of kind of where things are. On a standard football field, your end line is going to be smack dab in the middle of the end zone. Okay. And your defensive restraining lines are going to be right there on the 30, and your midline is going to be on the 50. So those are really good reference points to kind of figure out where you were. So this is the midline or the center line. You'll hear it referred to as, I did football for too long, so I still call it the 50. But that is your sort of key line for determining offsides. You've got these wing lines. The wing lines keep some of the players on a face-off. They've got to be behind those wing lines. So really the only time those lines come into play is during a face-off. We'll have a entire thing on that. This is the substitution area. This at the bottom of the screen here, in between the two 45-yard cones. That 10-yard area is the only place that players can come on the field and off the field during live play. When the ball's dead, ball goes out of bounds, you blow the whistle, you can come off on the sideline here or there, doesn't matter. But during live play, you've got to go through that substitution area, okay? You've got your bench sideline and your far sideline in lacrosse. Both teams are on the same sideline. So you'll have a home team, and on the other side of that substitution area, you'll have the visiting team. You've got your two end lines. And then you've got these two guys, the defensive restraining lines. These are lines that keep players back during a face-off. So your goalie, your three defensemen, and your three attackmen have to be behind their defensive restraining lines. Okay, that's the key part there. You got your crease. That's where the goalie gets his special privileges, and you've got your goal line. Now, this area right here, formed by the defensive restraining line and these two sort of wing lines, this is called the attack box or the box. And this is an area where it's important when you're restarting the ball after, let's say, a loose ball foul. You're never going to start the ball in the attack box. You're going to move it out laterally. This also comes in to play when you're talking about stalling rules. Teams have to sort of keep it in this box area during that. You'll notice that there's 7 cones. So you've got 4 on the bench sideline, and you've got 3 on the far sideline. You're going to show up to fields, and the dad who sets it up or the mom who sets it up is going to put a cone anytime 2 lines come together. These are the only 7 cones that you want out there on the field. And right in the center of the midline, you're going to have the face-off square. Okay. And this is a 4-inch by 4-inch square of a different color. Sometimes you'll have a dot. It doesn't really matter, but that's to mark the center of the field. You've got these 2 areas. They're called the alleys. Oftentimes when I'm redirecting players, I will say, hey guys, let's move the ball laterally. Let's go into the alley right by the 20. That's what we mean. This is a little zoomed out view. You see the coaches area, and let's go back, and the substitution area and the team areas. And what we call on the other side of the substitution area is the table area. That's where your scorekeeper and your timekeeper are going to be. That's where they keep the penalties. Substitution area is often referred to as the penalty area, because that's where you serve your penalty. You kneel in front of the table where the scorekeeper and the timekeeper are. And then you see the limit lines. You are not allowed to have any spectators inside those limit lines. Again, as an official, sometimes we want to be on the outside of the sidelines. We want to get out of the play and have a really good idea of what's going on. I've run into guys with the really big expensive cameras. I've run over, mom and dad sitting in their little beach chairs. You'll note that there are no limit lines on the end lines, and that's because we are shooting a ball at 90 to 110 miles an hour that is made of solid Indian rubber. We do not want grandma and grandpa setting up on the end line because they think they're going to get a really good view of Billy. You're not allowed to be sitting there unless they are permanent seats built into a stadium. Now, we also have the universal field. This was a field designed to incorporate elements of both the men's lacrosse game and the women's lacrosse game. So you'll note that the field has been extended 5 yards on each side so that the end line is now on the back of the end zone on each respective side. And we are using the women's crease, not where the men's crease is. The idea here was to make it cheaper and easier for schools to just have one set of lines where both teams could play. So these are legal fields that you can play on. Right?
Hey, Craig.
About lines themselves, they need to be non-caustic. You're not allowed to use stuff that melts your face. I'm old enough to remember when they did use lime and that kind of stuff. They are either 2 to 4 inches wide. The goal line must be 2 inches wide, and the midline must be 4 inches wide. Okay, the reason the goal line needs to be 2 inches is because the pipe is 2 inches, the goal line's 2 inches. We're creating a plane. We want to know if the ball has gone past the rear edge of that plane. They can be white or contrasting colors. Look, guys, we are in a football state. We are living in a world where our lines are probably not the most important lines out there on the field. So you will have fields where, the midline is orange, one sideline is blue, the other sideline is red. There's a green restraining line, and the crease is a different color. You need to be aware of those. It is legal as long as you got the lines that you need and the cones that you lead, and you're going to play that game. Midfield line, you need a midfield line. Everybody in football land loves their big giant dragon and dog and dolphin or whatever it is painted at the center of the field. It's really hard to determine offsides if you don't have a line. So you will notice that there is sort of a shadow line here that you can see. As long as you can make out a line, I don't have a problem with it. But we need a line, and a lot of these schools do not like this, right? If you do not have this, it's a technical foul to start the game. Basically, the game does not start with a face-off. You just award the ball to the other team. Trey?
Yeah.
You just muted yourself.
Oh, thanks. Just a quick couple of notes here. A lot of times you're going to get to a field and they're not going to have a 4-inch goal line or a 2-inch goal line. They're going to be using the crease, which goes across the football line, which is 4 inches. So, as long as both teams agree to play to those lines, you're going to have that issue more times than not. And then the other thing is about 90% of the fields don't differentiate the 30-yard line for the restraining box. So that's the other line that you're going to see that's not there. And you may be bringing that up here in a second, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get out there and you just need to know that the 30 is the restraining line, right? It isn't particularly set up for you. So whoever was the folk at the individual who worked the games at Buford or had their kid go to Buford, here's Buford. You will notice the end line does not go through those precious white letters that are there for the football end zone. And this is really tough. You get a contested play down by the end line, and bodies are stepping all over the place, and who's inbounds and who's out of bounds. I've had coaches on fields like this yell at me, he was clearly out of bounds, to which I responded, what side of the imaginary line was he on? Right? If you're not going to give me a line to adjudicate, it is really hard to figure out what the heck is going on here. Okay. So I think 2 years ago, they set this up as failure to have a continuous sideline or end line that runs the entire width of the field is a legal procedure, right? And, you know, one of the things we need to do is we can't be buddy-buddy with these guys. We can't. This is a rule. We need to enforce this. We need to document that this is not happening, so that you know, GHSA can hopefully put pressure on these guys to make sure that they get it right. This game is hard enough to officiate when you're not throwing sort of ridiculous challenges at us, right? Your cones, soft, flexible, right? Red or orange. They've got to be red or orange. Again, one at each corner, one at the far side midline, and two at the substitution area. The goals are all 6 by 6. Again, the 1.5 inch pipe, which sort of rounds up to 2 inches. They can be in-ground, flat iron, obtuse, or 90 degrees. You know, I'm pretty deep in the rule book, but no one's really ever asked me this question before. The goals do need to be orange. They are required to be orange. You can put little anchors in them that sort of secure them into place, and the home team is responsible for goals, okay? Failure to provide legal goals is a 3-minute non-releasable penalty against the home team. And I've done games where one goal was 6 by 6 and the other goal was 5 by 5. And we played the game, but we started out with a 3-minute non-releasable penalty. It is very rare. I mean, nowadays I would be shocked if we came to a site where you did not have 2 legal goals. I did a game with Trey where we showed up and nobody had strung the goals. But that's a different story altogether. Okay. The nets need to be pyramidal shaped cord netting. They need to be fastened 7 feet at the rear of the goal. They can't exceed 1.5 inches. They can be any solid color. And it's recommended that they be attached to the ground. Lacrosse balls. They must include, and you will learn this phrase if you're not an official already, the National Operating Committee on the Standards of Athletic Equipment, or NOCSE, and the NFHS authenticating mark, right? So they can be white, they can be yellow, they can be orange, or they can be lime green, but they need to have these markers on them. The reason they do that is that the helmets and the chest protectors on the shoulder pads that all these guys wear are designed for a certain weight ball. And probably 10 years ago, there was an incident up in Connecticut where they were using balls that were not meeting these standards. Kid got hit by a shot in the helmet, and another kid got hit in the chest, and he had what we had commotio cordis, right? It hit right in between his heartbeat and stopped his heart. Now they were able to run out on the field and perform CPR, and they hooked him up to the defibrillator, and he ended up being okay. But the other kid had a terrible concussion because the ball was way heavier than the rules really allowed for. Quick note: you can't just run off to the sideline during a game and say, "Oh, I don't see a white ball. I'm just going to pick up a yellow ball." You cannot change the color of the ball unless both coaches agree, right? So if a coach says, "Hey, can we play with an orange ball?" and the other coach says no, you play with a white ball. You may not understand why we play with an orange ball, but I played college lacrosse in Maine. It becomes fairly abundantly clear why it is important to have a ball of a different color. All right, additional game equipment. You need a scoreboard. Now, it can be one of these flip things off to the right here, or it can be the big fancy scoreboard that you see in other places. You need a clock. It can be the big scoreboard clock, or it can be this little dual timer action. It can be your cell phone. It can be whatever you need it to be. The home team needs to provide balls. The home team needs to provide a horn, a working horn. I have had teams that didn't have a horn, and so they pulled literally like a Ford F-150 up to the table, and they just used the actual horn on the truck. You need cones, and for varsity games, I'll stress that you need a scorebook with all the players listed in it, where you keep the penalties, you keep the goals, you keep the timeouts, all that information. If you do a youth game, you'll be lucky to have a cell phone and a scrap of paper and some stuff, right? This is more so for when you answer questions on the rules test and when you when you're starting to work those varsity games. All right, what are we looking at here? All right, I think we can get through the next one and be done in the appropriate amount of time. All right, let's go over to cross and equipment. All right, this is all the stuff you need to be a player and be legally equipped, okay? So you need a mouthpiece. You need a helmet. You have to have a cross. You gotta wear gloves. You have to have shorts. All players at the youth and high school level need to have a cup. You gotta have shoes, can't have metal spikes, and you need arm pads, okay? Your shoulder pads need to meet that NOXI standard. Nowadays, they have that, again, that little chest thing that comes down below. That is to protect this area so that you do not get commotio cordis. Home team is required to wear white jerseys, and the visiting team is required to wear dark. You will show up to a game and a team is like, oh, well, we forgot our white jerseys. We only have our white jerseys. We forgot our away jerseys. What you then do is you make the home team change because they have access to their stuff. They've got access to a locker room. It just is easier for everybody. Okay. Now, you are not allowed, okay, to wear a football helmet. If you're a field player, you cannot wear football pads in your pants. You cannot wear football shoulder pads. This stuff needs to be designed and manufactured for lacrosse. So this stuff is out. You are allowed to wear rib pads. That is completely legal. Some players do, some players don't. You are allowed to use electronic equipment while you are on the sideline to communicate with coaches. Okay, but you are not allowed to use that to communicate with players on the field. And if you have a religious medal or a medical alert bracelet, that needs to be taped down so that that religious medal isn't flying around. Okay. Eye shields and glasses. You can wear a clear molded non-rigid eye shield. You can wear tinted or clear eyeglasses, but you cannot wear both eye shield and tinted glasses. The reason they don't want you doing that is looking at a player's eye, if you suspect that he's got a concussion, is really important. And if they're wearing tinted stuff and you've got an eye shield, you kind of can't get in there to move those glasses off the player's face. So that's sort of the rationale there. Kind of the same deal in football. If you've got a cast, you can put foam padding and stuff around that. It's got to be 1/2 inch thick, high density, closed cell polyurethane. And you need written authorization from a doctor or a medical professional. Knee braces, ankle braces, all that stuff can be worn without padding. Goalkeeper equipment. I've talked a lot about how the goalkeeper is sort of one of the key players. You need to have a legally equipped goalkeeper on the field or you cannot play the game. Okay. Goalkeepers are, again, not allowed to wear football helmets or shoulder pads, and they're not allowed to have hockey, the big hockey mitt thing. So that's out. They are required to wear a throat protector, and they have to have a goalkeeper chest protector designed for lacrosse that meets the ND 200 NOXI standard. They are allowed to wear football pads in their pants. They can wear football pants without the pads, and they're allowed to wear shin guards. Although I will say 99% of the players that I see are just wearing regular shorts, they're wearing their cup, they're wearing their throat guard, and they're wearing their chest protector, right? Goalkeepers are not required to wear elbow pads. Eye black, been fighting this battle for a long time. I've sort of given up the ghost on this one. In high school, you are only allowed to have one swirl underneath your eyes. In college, you can, make it look like you're Viking warrior guy. But it's only supposed to be a solid stroke, and it may not include words, numbers, logos, or other symbols. So just the one stroke. The cross can be made of wood, laminated wood, or synthetic. It's been a long time since I've seen a wooden shaft. They're very heavy to run around on the field with. They're very heavy to whack people with. The titanium alloy stuff and the carbon fiber stuff is crazy. Hollow handles must have a manufactured plug. There are two lengths for lacrosse sticks. 40 to 42 inches is what we call a short stick, and then 52 to 72 is what we call a long pole. The handle must be relatively straight. It can't be bigger than 3.5 inches in circumference, and the net can be made of gut, rawhide, linen, or synthetic material, but it can't be designed to ensnare anything. Key part of this is a broken cross is not a cross. So if you break your cross, it is not a penalty per se, but you are no longer a legally equipped player. So you can't be the one closest to somebody or closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds. You cannot participate in the play, or you are illegally participating. You are allowed to pick up your broken cross and run off the field. Okay, just as long as you do not participate in the play. For those of you who don't know the sort of ins and outs of what a lacrosse stick looks like, the little part up at the top is called the scoop. You've got the sidewall, which is about 2 inches high. You've got the mesh, you've got the throat, and you've got the neck, okay? The ball stop is you're only allowed to use one. It's a maximum of 2 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, and 1/4 inch thick. Again, it is not required. Players work their sticks. They sort of string their sticks to create the pocket that they want to better catch, throw, pass, shoot. You are not allowed to have shooting strings. So the thing on the left here that says wrong is what used to be legal. That was a pretty standard stick back in my day. And the one on the right is sort of probably not what you're going to see. Any shooting string needs to be within 4 inches of the top of the cross, and you're not allowed more than one sidewall string on either side. This is a big one. You do this illegally, and it's a 2-minute non-releasable penalty. Again, the pocket must be completely attached to the head and the sidewalls. No gaps large enough for the ball to pass. No hooks or lips. And the top of the ball placed in the pocket cannot be below the sidewall. We'll talk about that when we demonstrate stick checks. This is kind of what would be an illegal stringing technique. And the new rule as of last year is any of these holes that's large enough for a golf ball to go through is too big. All right. This is the Gate D. It was a stick that came out 2 years ago. And it had a hook on it, and so it grabbed the other player's mesh, and you could rip the stick right out of their hands. That's illegal. Again, short crosses, long crosses. Right? When you measure the head of the stick, and this is something that we do throughout the game, is from the top to the throat needs to be 10 inches. Across the top is minimum of 6. It can be wider, right? And then 5 inches up, you measure a minimum of 3.5. 3 inches up, you measure 3, and 1.25 inches up, you measure 3. We'll go through this again. We'll demonstrate this on the field training days. You can have tape on your cross. Cross used in a face-off may not have tape on the head. We'll get into that when we do face-offs. And you can have tape rings, but they can't be more than 3 inches from the bottom end of the cross. You got to have a manufactured end cap. And then you got the goalie's cross. Only one goalkeeper cross on the field at a time, 40 to 72. So it can be from the short length to the top of the big length. The width is 10 to 12 inches. The pocket is allowed to be deep. There are no restrictions on shooting strings. I cannot emphasize this enough. Under no circumstances should you ever check a goalkeeper's cross unless the coach specifically requests it. And in 24 years of doing this, no one has ever asked me to do that. Here's a pretty good example of how quickly you can do a stick check. Right, so here we go. Period ends. Here are officials coming in. They're going to identify a player. They're going to ask about gloves. They're going to see if they've got shoulder pads. Do you have all the required equipment that you need? We're going to watch these teams cross so that we're sort of making sure that mixed colors are not getting all in each other's face, right? We're keeping an eye on the benches. And you'll see these guys are measuring the crosses. We're going to measure the heads. We're going to go from the head and measure the length. Right, we're going to measure across. We're going to measure the shooting strings. Right, and then they're going to share the ball between each other and do what we call the rollout tests. Right, make sure that pocket's not deep. Does the ball come out freely? Boom, we're going to get the ball back where it needs to be, and we're going to go about our business. Right. The head coach is allowed to request a stick check or an equipment check. They must request it by player number. It has to be during a dead ball, and all equipment gets inspected. If they find something illegal, the coach keeps his free check, and he's allowed to use his free check later on. If he does not find something that is illegal, he loses that free check. He's still allowed to ask for an equipment check. But if he doesn't find something illegal, he either has to burn a timeout or he's going to get an illegal procedure penalty on him, which is going to be 30 seconds. All illegal crosses, for whatever reason, are 2-minute non-releasable penalties. The two big ones are it's going to be a deep pocket, right? Or it's going to be an illegal cross. So the stringing's wrong or something's going on there. Illegal equipment, 1 minute non-releasable for all violations. If both equipment and cross violations, you assess the worst violation, which is going to be the cross. Mouthpiece is just a technical foul. Okay. So you don't have to really worry about that. And then be very careful on the mouthpiece violations. If it comes out as a result of play, it's not a violation. You've got to know why it came out, right? As we like to say in this business, don't be that good. Right, improper uniform stuff is one technical foul for all violations. Once the game has begun, everything is considered legal for play as far as uniforms are concerned. If somebody comes on illegally equipped, they don't have a glove, they don't have a mouthpiece, you just send them back off the field. Right? That's the best way to kind of handle these situations. You're only allowed 4 long crosses on the field. It's really important to keep a lookout for this. The coach can ask for a count of these. Youth rules will definitely limit some of these things, right? Sometimes they will only allow kids to play with short sticks. They want to develop those skills. So it's important to sort of be paying attention to what those particular youth rules are. Gentlemen, all right, we have come to the end of that long-winded, massive amount of information that I have thrown at you. And I want to be very respectful of your time. First off, does anybody have any questions that they need addressed? We're good? All right. I'm going to be sending you an email probably sometime tomorrow afternoon with a recording of this and the recording that I'd really like you to watch, which is about timing rules. Again, if you have to miss stuff, if you've got to step away, I understand life gets in the way. We want to make this as easy as possible for you. But if you're watching it on your own and you come up with a question, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the board members. They would be delighted to answer any of your questions. Okay. We're going to get into much more exciting stuff. Positioning. We're going to watch a lot of film about where we're supposed to stand and what we're supposed to be doing. We'll get into a unit on the penalty stuff, which is always fun to watch. And then when we do our in-person event on the 20th, we're going to talk about crease play, face-offs, and goals. So you'll see a lot of in-person stuff on the 20th. Jim, do you have a question? You're muted.
Got it. Greg, real quick. The two-man mechanics. Where's that video?
The two-man mechanics manual is an actual document.
Okay.
So if you go to the training plan, there's all of those documents. You can click links on that training plan and see what's going on. And I will just keep updating that training plan document as we go. So, you know, just bookmark that on your browser and we should be good to go there. All right, yeah.
And that training plan is GA Lax. That training plan is where GA.
It's in the email that I sent you tonight.
Yeah, good enough. All right, cool.
Cool. All right, guys.
Quick question.
The rest of the evening. I will see you on next Wednesday.
Question.
All right, bye, y'all.
Wait, Greg. Wait.
Somebody had a question.
What you got?
Who had the question?
Oh, okay. Can anybody hear me? My
Yeah.
mic might be messed up. Does NFHS mail them a physical book to us if we want them, or is it just a download?
I'm gonna have right now. I think it's just a download. Although I know Landon has secured.
Landon has the books.
Yeah, but he's got a limited amount. Now
okay.
I know there will be enough for you guys. I can try to get Landon to mail one to you. So if you want a physical book, reach out to me. Just shoot me an email, and give me